Good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Josephine Franklin. My colleagues call me Jo, and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. Our topic today is identifying, selecting, training teacher leaders to build culture. We have a few technical notes. So should you have a problem, please call GoToWebinar attendee support at the toll-free number typed in red, 855-352-9002, and provide today's webinar ID that you see typed in red, 747-677-235. As you participate in this webinar, we invite you to expand the conversation on Twitter using the hashtag NASSP webinar. We are also on Facebook at facebook.com/principal. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be available as well as a PowerPoint on NASSP website within 24 hours at nassp.org/webinars. Should you want a certificate of attendance for this webinar, go to NASSP webinar completed after today's presentation. We are pleased to have with us today Carmen Concepcion and John LeGrand and Jana Freeland. Carmen Concepcion has served as principal of Oak Lawn Language Academy in Charlotte, North Carolina since 2011. Oak Lawn has been the highest performing Title I school in the district for 4 consecutive years, winning both state and national recognition. Carmen coaches principals for her district through the Wallace Foundation Principal Pipeline Initiative and recently completed National Mentor Certification in Educational Leadership with NAESP. She is currently participating at the Kahn Fellows program with Columbia University. John LeGrand is currently the principal of David W. Butler High School with Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools. During his 18 years in education, he has served as both a middle level and high school teacher, as well as school administrator at the elementary, middle level, and high school level. Mr. LeGrand is deeply committed to public education and has partnered with Wallace Foundation and NASSP to not only enhance the work being done in Charlotte Mecklenburg schools, but also with his urban school districts around the United States. Jana, do you want to step in here? You had a few words you wanted to share with the audience?
Sure. Can you go to the next slide, please?
Sure.
So today we're going to talk about cultivating school climate, and is specifically about growing teacher leadership. And you heard that we have 2 very powerful, well-prepared principals who are willing to speak with us on this webinar today. So I first wanted to tell both of them thank you. I personally got to work with both of these principals and see them in action as they've done multiple presentations on the tool that they have created today. They will talk to you a little bit later in the webinar about how this work came to be. It came to be as a result of the support of the Wallace Foundation and the work with NASSP in a joint effort called the Principal PLC initiative. And that's part of a bigger Wallace initiative, which is working on improving schools, called the Principal Pipeline Initiative. We are very thankful for Wallace support in all of the work that we do at NASSP. The other piece of significance to this work was that we use design thinking methodology in order to be able to develop the tools that that you will hear about today. And we followed the specific steps of working through empathy, define, ideate, prototype, and test in order to be able to do those. Design thinking is unique because it really gets the people who are designing to focus on what the end need of the user are by starting with the empathy stage. So the design thinking piece of it was a critical piece to this tool being created. And without further ado, I'd like to turn this over to our 2 principals so that they can begin to speak about the tool.
Thank you. All right, Carmen and John, welcome, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for
You're
having
welcome. Thank you for having us.
So Joe, if you could go on to the next slide.
Sure.
As Jenna was mentioning, we did work with a great group of principals from around the nation. We had principals from Denver and New York and Charlotte, different places in the nation, and we got to participate in creating this project based on the Wallace 5 principles. And so on your slide there, you can see these 5 principles, and each group was assigned one of the principles to develop a project, a tool that would be appropriate and applicable by principals out in the job, and would really be something that would help the climate in their schools. So that's how this work came about, and we focused on building these teacher leaders in our buildings. John?
Hello?
Hello, John.
Okay, so we're going to talk about our project, and if you could flip to the next, well, yes, flip to the next slide. So as you mentioned earlier, I am a principal at a high school, David W. Butler High School in Charlotte, North Carolina. And at David W. Butler, we are blessed to have enjoyed a lot of success over the years, and many years of consecutive academic success, because we have several what I call rock star teachers. And when I say rock star teachers, those are defined as not just good teachers, but great teachers. And so we want to make sure that every student that's in that great teacher's class, they enjoy being in the class. Every parent enjoys being in the class, and it's just the type of teacher that thrives in every building. But as I'm describing that teacher, I'm sure that many of you listening are thinking about some of the rock star teachers that you have in your building, and I bet many of you do fall in the same trap that I do, is kind of overburdening those same rock star teachers with teacher leadership opportunities. So as we thought about this as a group, we thought about coming up with some strategies that would help us spread the wealth and get more teachers involved in teacher leadership opportunities, to not only prevent overloading those rock stars, but also increase teacher buy-in and building teacher capacity, so we can continue to improve the climate within our school building. And so that's what we're here to talk about today. And as you can see here on our on the screen, this is a 4-part. We came up with 4 critical things or actions that need to happen when offering teachers teacher leadership opportunities, and specifically from the principal's seat, on how you would go about doing this, and to assist other principals around the country on how they can effectively roll out teacher leadership opportunities in a way that it will be effective, and again, enhance the school climate and enhance the academic achievement there in the building. All right, so if we could go to and these are the 4 things: planning, identifying, developing, and reflecting, and that are critical to this teacher leadership opportunities. And we're going to talk about each one of those in detail here in this webinar. So if we could go to the next slide.
Okay. Yeah, everything can go wrong. What's going on?
Click on this slide. Go over a little bit to the left.
Okay, so again, as I was just touching on, why do we encourage teachers to lead? We want to make sure that we're enhancing, because it does enhance the school's climate and optimize its potential for supporting the education mission of the school. It also builds teacher capacity and instructional influence, and support principals in distributive leadership. As principals, we can't do it all, and we do need help from leaders in our building, specifically teachers. And as we all know, the more you give teacher leadership opportunities, the more teachers buy into the school-wide initiative and improvement efforts, as opposed to everything being top-down. The teachers are there helping you with leading whatever the initiative is and pushing it forward. So you will get more buy-in and ownership school-wide. All right, if we can see the next slide. So let's talk about what teacher leadership opportunities are. And you can see there on the screen, it could range from being a department chair, to being a instructional coach, to being someone who leads professional development there at the school, conducting instructional rounds with teams of teachers, leading that. It could be all of those things, being a mentor. But one thing we know for sure is that allowing teachers opportunities for leadership will promote a more collaborative culture in your building, and that's what the whole goal is with this. You can go to the next one. So planning, anything just like anything that we do at our schools, we must ensure that it is well planned out and thoroughly thought out if we hope for it to be successful. So to assist principals who begin in this planning process, we developed a planning tool, which is a questionnaire of critical points to consider prior to approaching or selecting teachers about potential leadership opportunities. It's also important to point out that some teacher leadership opportunities are teacher initiated, and not all opportunities are top down. And so this tool can also be used in these situations also. So what is included in this tool, there's a link there, and I'll tell you what is in there. It basically determines the overall purpose for the leadership opportunity. In other words, why do we need this? And then the second part is how to communicate that purpose to teachers and staff. What are the desired outcomes of the leadership opportunity? Characteristics and attributes that are looked for when selecting this teacher leader, and supports and PD needed to help that teacher be successful. Any incentives and compensation, anything that you can offer the teacher, because we know a lot of times when we're asking teachers to do something extra, they're already overburdened with what their daily tasks are. What kind of things can we potentially take off of their plate, or what kind of incentives can we offer them when we're thinking about this opportunity? And these are all the things I just mentioned are things we need to consider prior to even approaching the teacher, to think about or selecting or approaching the teacher to see if they are interested in this opportunity. So it's kind of it is a planning tool that needs to be completed. So the principal has all of those important details in place prior to, again, speaking to whoever the selected teacher would be. So the next part of the process would be identifying that teacher, and I'm gonna turn it over to Carmen for those details.
Thanks, John. So as John mentioned, after planning the opportunity, then we need to look at identifying the teachers or staff members in the school that should have an opportunity. And pretty much the answer to that is everyone. You want to make sure that you open this up to different abilities and ability levels. And you want to make sure that you tap into specific talents that a teacher might have. One teacher may not be very organized, but she may be very creative, and then be able to be used in some kind of project that entails creativity. Need to make sure that the staff member has credibility with others when that's a necessary component. And choose those members of the staff that are not obvious. Many times, and I know in my career, there are certain personalities that don't stand out to you as obvious leaders, but they have leadership potential, and we as principals have the opportunity to bring out that potential in our staff members and our students and in everyone. So I think it's really important that we not overlook those not obvious choices. Look for a person whose passion and talents match the opportunity, as I spoke about, if they're creative, if they're organized, whatever that may be applicable to. And then select teachers with leadership potential. I think it's really important that we continue to foster these teachers that we can identify and just see leadership potential in for being great principals. So this is an opportunity to do that. And as John mentioned, we really need to be sure, and I know all of us are guilty of this, of just trying really hard not to, but we unintentionally overburden and stress out and burn out our rock star teachers. So that's something that we really need to be careful of. And in looking at who we can identify for these opportunities, it gives us a chance to spread the wealth. If you could go on to the next slide, Joe. So some tools in assisting us in identifying. So we can really use a lot of things. I think most importantly, above all else, is the relationships that we create with our teachers. We get to know them. But of course, at the beginning of the year, we need some things to help us out. So we can use interest inventories. You have a few links here that you can look at your leisure after this is posted, of some survey examples, some self-assessments. You know, you yourself can identify strengths in the person. They can self-identify as well. There are personality inventories, and there's some questions that will be used in conversations where you can push thinking, because a lot of teachers don't realize that they have that leadership in them. And the last one I'll call your attention to, and I'm not sure if you can access that link, the application process for specific opportunities. Joe, can you try to click on that?
I know the link works, but I'm afraid that if I do, I'm going to lose the continuity of the presentation.
Okay, well, I guess you can also look at that at your leisure. But basically, I had a problem that I was faced with 2 years ago in school. You know, we always have shortages, and one of my key people was out on maternity leave, and they decided to take pretty much a full year out. So I was panicking at the beginning of the year, thinking this facilitator is going to be out. I really need to do something in order for teachers to feel supported. We have a very unique school, and it is a language school, and we have many visiting international faculty teachers. So that means that they're coming from countries like Spain and Colombia and Peru and all of these Spanish-speaking countries with no knowledge of how to work in the United States, and it's culture shock and just very different. So our facilitators are key people, key personnel in our staff. And so I was faced with the fact that I'm not going to have this particular facilitator. So I thought about how we could give an opportunity for leadership in that. And then with my instructional leadership team, we developed an application process for teachers to have the opportunity to step in as an intern facilitator. And the way that we did this was by hiring a substitute that was certified and would be able to help in that classroom as the teacher took on these facilitator responsibilities. So in the application process, when you access that application, you'll see that has a variety of questions. It talks about what opportunities that particular teacher has had to mentor other teachers. It talks about how they handle conflict with peers, how they would handle conflict. And then probably most importantly, I wanted to make sure that the teacher that was going to do this could show me and prove to me that they have 3 solid years of student growth, and they could give me a plan about how they would consistently maintain this student growth given this opportunity. So they were to provide graphs and charts that told me the story of their data story for the last few years and gave me a plan on how it is that they could maintain, because the message had to be that your first priority are your students, but you are having this opportunity to lead as well. And so the process was really great. It turned out to be a wonderful experience from my teachers as well as myself. I did learn a lot through it. And so we ended up choosing 2 teachers, one for the K4 group and one for the 5-8 group. And so those 2 teachers had the opportunity to be intern facilitators, work with teachers, mentor them, model for them, plan in professional learning communities with them. And so it was a really great process that we did together, and I met with them on a regular basis to make sure that we were supporting them adequately and that we were making sure that their students were still high performing and that their needs were being met. If you could go on to the next slide. At your leisure, you can also access the teacher testimonial. I had a few of my teachers give a testimonial about their experience in this whole project and how they felt having this opportunity to lead and while still being in the classroom as well. Next. Okay, I'll turn it over to John for developing.
All right, thank you, Carmen. So now as a principal, you have planned and ironed out the details for these leadership opportunities, and then as I spoke about just a few minutes ago, and then as Carmen just spoke about, you have identified the teacher based on the opportunity and the details of who you think would be a good match. And so now we were talking about developing and supporting the person that you have chosen with this tool. So if you'll go to the next slide.
One more?
Yeah, go to the next. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're there. I'm sorry. Go back. Yeah, so we have 4 modules that our team created in preparing teachers to lead. If we're going to ask teachers to do this, we do need to give them the support and the professional development and the tools to be able to effectively lead adults. So the first one is adult learning, and that's the one that we'll be talking about. But those are the remaining, or actually there's 5 modules that we'll be talking about here today. So if you'll go to the next one, we're going to talk about adult learning first. And as we all realize, leading adults is a very different skill than leading children. And sometimes our teachers are not going to be skilled at doing that because they haven't had practice, and they haven't had opportunities to do that until they've been asked to lead whatever you as the principal are asking them to lead. So this module is designed to assist those teachers with building their understanding of how adults learn. And if you can see down there at the bottom about where it says table of content, it gives different links that you can click on. And I'm just going to give you a summary of what is in each of those links. As you click on it, it's sort of a lesson plan that states the purpose, the materials needed, the connection to the objective, active engage or activities that are suggested, and any type of the resources that are needed to achieve what the purpose of the module is. But if you were to click on that introduction of adult learning, what you would see is there's 5 assumptions of adult learning, and there's a activity for teachers, and this could be for a group of teachers that you have selected. There's a KWL intro brainstorming activity. There's also a video for the students, or the teachers to watch and discuss about adult learning, and then it outlines within that link the 5 assumptions of adult learning. So that's what would be included in 1.1. In 1.2, the 4 principles of adult learning. This introduces those 4 principles and provides time for the adult learner to make connections to current practices and how to refine those practices based on any new knowledge that they are building as a result of this learning. Within that link, you will find a group rotation activity, and it also outlines and describes the 4 principles of adult learning that would be really critical for teachers to know as they are leading other adults. And then the Let's Get Motivated. This within that link, it introduced 3 motivators designed to increase teacher performance, which will ultimately, as we all know, increase student achievement. Within that link, it includes 3 questions 3 questions designed for consideration when creating an agenda or participating in a planning, or for an agenda for a planning meeting, or participating in an instructional planning sessions. Those questions are designed to increase engagement, fun, and motivation among all adult learners as they complete their instructional duties. So this is something for them to continuously think about these questions as they are planning for how they will lead other adults. It also gives 17 different short tips for motivating adult learners. Some of those include competition. We know that sometimes that is a big motivator for adults and kids alike. Humor, suspension, make learning visually compelling, allowing them to give examples to build connections, These are all ways to motivate adult learners, and there's some things for, again, the teachers to look at and consider and learn prior to becoming a teacher leader, and so that they have a good chance of being successful. All right, if we flip to the next slide. Facilitating meetings. Again, this is something that a lot of our teachers are not skilled at because they don't facilitate meetings. And if we're going to be asking them to do that, we do need to give them the tools to be able to do that successfully. So facilitating meetings overall this module provides teacher learners with activities, or teacher leaders, with activities, protocols, resources, and tools that they can use to effectively facilitate meetings with other teachers. This module places a focus on planning, opening, and conducting meetings. So the first link there is preparing for the meeting. And as principals, we all understand that it is a critical component of holding an effective meeting is adequately preparing for that meeting. And many teacher leaders underestimate the importance of this. So this link shows them how to plan for meetings that are purposeful, efficient, and that result in clear outcomes. So inside of that link, it does have a discussion question that teachers that you have selected for leadership opportunities can openly discuss. And basically the discussion question is, think about a meeting that you have been to that was a good meeting. What made that a good meeting? What kind of things happen in that meeting, so that they can talk about that amongst themselves. And then there's a video to be viewed together and discussed afterwards by either you and the teacher, or two teacher leaders, or a group of teacher leaders that you have selected for your school. And then there's an excerpt from article that's entitled "The Art of Facilitating Teacher Teams," again, that's professional reading that's included in there for teachers to read. And then there's also an activity that allows teacher leaders to practice this preparation for the meeting. Then using structures or protocols. That 2.2 link, it introduces teacher leaders to the importance of structures and protocols, and also provides clear and relevant examples that they can use when planning for their meetings. It gives within the link, it talks about a 4 A's protocol and describes that 4 A's protocol, and also provides an article that teachers can read. What are protocols, why use them, and then it culminates with an activity that asks a group of, again, teacher leaders to read the article while using that 4 A's protocol that is described within that link. And then the final link there, opening and conducting a meeting. So this link introduced teacher leaders to an effective framework and specific techniques for leading effective meetings. It includes a jigsaw activity to be used by a group of teacher leaders as they read an article that's entitled "Leadership Lessons, Tools for Effective Teams." And there's a couple of other things down there at the bottom, or links down at the bottom also. Team meeting planning template. This assists the teacher leader with planning, opening, and closing a meeting. So it gives a template that asks the teacher critical questions on, okay, as you plan, here's the steps. And it walks the teacher through the different things that need to be considered when planning, when opening, and when closing the meeting, so that the teacher is fully prepared when he or she is leading a group of peers in a PLC meeting or an instructional planning meeting, or whatever the case may be. And then down at the bottom, Module 3 resources, additional resources that can be used along with that Module 3 as needed. So there's a wealth of information there that can be used for the teachers as they start thinking about facilitating meetings. All right, if we go to the next slide, our next module is managing conflicts. Again, this is something teachers do, a lot of them do really well with students in their classroom, some not so well, but most of our teachers are really skilled with that type of conflict. But as we all know, and when you start getting into a leadership position, you've got to be able to effectively navigate conflicts among teachers, among adults, among parents, and it may even be a teacher-student conflict that must be managed. So this module provides the teacher with strategies for navigating all types of and resolving all types of conflicts among all types of people that are associated with a school building. So within the table of contents there, if you were to click on 3.1, you would find articles that in professional reading again on applying the appropriate management strategies and resolving conflicts effectively. You would also, if you were to click on that, resolving conflicts effectively, there would be a group of some more professional reading of a collection of articles that the teacher can read and something that you and as the principal could also talk to the teacher about what he or she has read and what their thoughts were on that to stimulate that conversation. And then down in 3.3, this is a kind of a cool tool that has been included, and it's a restorative script that can possibly use to hold a conference and successfully resolve the conflict between two parties. And basically, it's a script that you can personalize for whatever your conflict situation is. And it gives a way to start the meeting, things that should be said. There's even some fill in the blank within the script along the way, so that if a teacher is not experienced or skilled in that type of situation, they have something to rely on to plan for the conflict or helping others resolve that conflict as a leader in the school building. So those are three of the modules. We've got two more, and I'm going to turn this over to Carmen. She's going to explain the next two.
Okay, thanks, John. So this next module focuses on solving problems. And so we all know that our inclination is always like we want to solve the problem. But some of these exercises, like particularly peeling the onion, will take teachers through how to identify that problem properly before actually following that inclination to solve it. So they're just some exercises that will help us ask the right questions, as well as identifying the problem in order to really address it correctly. You can go on to the next one, Joe. Our last module in this tool is mentoring. And mentoring also is something that I think our inclination is about giving answers, but really we know that effective mentoring is about asking the right questions. So these activities take teachers through like mentoring microlabs and mentoring 101. Some of these activities, they focus on remembering mentoring relationships that we have had as teachers and as leaders, and reflecting on those and what was helpful from those conversations and those relationships, and what would have been more helpful. And so those activities would really take the teachers through asking the right questions, what really you should probe and prompt your mentee to answer and really reflect on their practice in order for them to come to the conclusion themselves. I mean, we always try to steer them a particular way, but sometimes we need to let them think through that, and that's a learned skill that we've all had to really delve into in our leadership journeys, and teachers find this very helpful as far as learning these particular strategies to help their mentees. And so as we go on along after developing, then we want to reflect. And so Joel, if you could go on to the next slide. So and the next one after that. Okay, so when we reflect, we want to make sure that we measure the quality of this experience for all the parties involved, right? And so that's going to be from your teachers to you yourself as an administrator, and what the impact was on the students and what the impact was on the school as a whole. And so this reflection serves to help us measure that quality of experience. It helps us identify opportunities to improve on the subsequent experiences, and we can receive feedback that's very crucial and essential to the success of your climate and just these teacher leadership opportunities about hits and misses and what we can do to support the process more. And then it's an opportunity to share strengths with the teachers as far as their next steps for leadership tracks, and even more to reflect on yourself as a leader and what things you can do to better support your teachers and where it is that you can really step it up. And so some of the questions, when you click on that leadership tool, you're going to see that it has questions about what challenges surprised the teacher about completing this project. So they came in expecting a particular experience, but what challenges were a surprise to them? And so reflecting on that, reflecting on what they wish they would have known before starting the project and how that would have changed, how they went about completing it. What ways could administration have supported them better? What additional organizational tools or materials would have helped? And what worked well for them, and what did they learn about themselves as leaders during this project? So to wrap up, John will take us through maybe some questions that you all might have, but just to finish up, if you could go on to the next slide, Joe. And it's just a couple of, right before that, just a couple of great quotes that we found about growth and leadership. And I think Harvey Firestone says it well when he says growth and development of people is the highest calling of leadership, because that's what we're there to do, to develop potential in our students and our teachers and just in everyone that we have impact on. And really delving into those capabilities the teachers have, extraordinary leadership capabilities and their untapped resources that really can be a great help for ourselves as principals and for them as well in pursuing these leadership opportunities.
Yeah, and Carmen, one of the things we definitely talked about in our group is the fact that, you know, we as principals a lot of times have the best of intentions in doing that, but sometimes we don't have all the resources in one place to get that done effectively and have and for it to be a fair situation that we're putting the teacher in, you know, and so we wanted to kind of compile all of this, and that's what this tool is about, compiling it so that principals that do want to extend these type of leadership opportunities, and I think it's a critical part of any school, will have all of these different things that we talked about and all this information in one place that will allow them to successfully support teachers as we send them out on these leadership opportunities. I know sometimes I'm guilty of, hey, you know, maybe seeing a teacher in the hallway and saying, hey, I really want you to do this. Will you do it? And then I don't do a whole lot more than that, and then we wonder why it didn't go the way it was supposed to go. So to be very strategic and be very deliberate and to be supportive and reflecting on how can we do this better along with the teacher and giving them the skills and the information that they need to be successful. I think that's all a big part of or I know it's all a big part of making this doable and making it effective, you know, within the school building and getting outcomes that we truly desire from allowing our teachers to be leaders and giving them these type of opportunities.
All right, I see that we have a few questions that have come in from our audience, so I'm going to switch over here to our Q&A section. And Carmen and John, if you could help with these questions. The first one is, how did design thinking methodology help guide you through this process that you've explained to us today?
Okay, Carmen, you want to take that one?
I can start it off. So I remember one of the things that I found really helpful about this project was the way that we started was we had a time period where we spoke to experts and we spoke to people in our district in regards to this whole potential tool and just the problem, the theory behind it. And I think that was really great. We had the opportunity to speak to Todd Whitaker. I remember John moderated that call, and so that was really a great call, and we were able to talk to district leaders. And so we actually went to experts before we started on this journey. And I think that was a really great step in this whole, just the thought behind the design process.
I would agree.
Okay. We have another question here. Have either of you used these tools in your schools, and to what end?
I have used several components of this tool. Of course, it is a lot, and we made it that way on purpose so that principals can pick and choose what they feel like would be effective given the situation and giving what that specific teacher needs, to be supported on, and what his or her strengths and weaknesses may be. But that's something that the principal has at his or her disposal to make those type of decisions on. I can tell you that specifically at my school, I was asking a teacher to be a department chair because our department chair from the year before had moved on to another opportunity, and I needed someone to step in. And coincidentally, it was about the time that we were building this tool, and I used this tool and several components of it, and I felt a lot more prepared. I felt a lot more, I guess it was a more comprehensive approach to what I was trying to do. And the teacher was very appreciative as well because she was new to all of this, never been a teacher leader before. And I feel like a lot of the gaps were filled in by drawing from these resources that wouldn't have necessarily been done otherwise, because I wouldn't have been as intentional about it without looking at the tool and deciding what I wanted to use. And I used a lot of it. Some things I didn't because it didn't really apply to the situation, or it was something that the teacher didn't need. But it, in a lot of ways, I used most of it, and it really facilitated me as a principal rolling it out and making sure that I was supporting and making my expectations clear on what we wanted the outcome to be. And on the other hand, it also helped out the teacher a lot too. And it's been a successful transition, and she's doing really well at this point.
Very nice.
And I'll also add that with my experience, yes, I absolutely used it. And if you go back through the presentation, you'll be able to access the teacher testimonial about that. And that was when I talked about that opportunity that I was missing a facilitator, a key role in our building. And so I gave that opportunity for anybody in the building could apply for this, but it was a great way to weed out those people. Well, sometimes you come across these teachers that'll say, well, you never approach me for an opportunity, right? And so this way I opened it up to all of the buildings, but at the same time, you had to have good data to support that. I needed to be able to see in your application that you have been consistently having your kids score well and supporting your kids well. And so that helped weed out some people that really weren't qualified, some, that may not be as self-aware as others, right? So that whole process was really helpful. And then I used the reflecting tool as well. And those conversations were really great at the end, and really I think they were very helpful for the teachers. They realized that how different. I think until we step into these positions, we don't realize how different it is to lead adults rather than children. Children are much nicer a lot of the times, and so we really have to learn these skills. And so I think the teachers really realized that, and then I, as a principal, realized how it is that really I can find in something that was a problem for me and something I was fretting about, it was really a great opportunity to help these teachers that were interested in facilitator positions.
Thank you. I encourage the audience to download this presentation. It will be on our website at nassp.org/webinar. There were a host of resources attached to the slides. You saw the many, many links as we went through them. I know the links do work, and it links to a host of articles and videos and testimonials and all the things that were described for you. We were not able to do that this afternoon. I was just very apprehensive that it was going to create a problem. We wouldn't be able to get back to our presentation, but they are there. So I do encourage you to download the presentation. And with that, Jana, you said you had something you wanted to add to this?
I do. Thank you. And first of all, Carmen and John, thank you again. I mentioned at the beginning of this that I got to see you in multiple venues present and work on your tool, and your passion for the tool and for what you do comes out in that. So I just want to commend you for that. And I also want to once again thank the Wallace Foundation for allowing us to partner with them on projects such as this. Their key leadership practices have really changed the way that educators look at their practice and how they improve schools. So I want to mention that. I just want to say again that John and Carmen and your entire group, you really developed a very comprehensive tool. And I don't think people think about teacher leadership from as comprehensive of a level as you have done. But you use words like intentional, deliberate, strategic. And when you have teacher leadership divided into the 4 areas that you've divided them into: planning, identifying, developing, and reflecting, you've really given an entire and all-encompassing view of how to help principals approach teacher leaders and foster that teacher leadership in their buildings. So great job. Joe mentioned that you can access these tools, and just so the audience knows, the tools are already available for you to use and customize. They are what we consider right now prototypes, because what we want people to do is to pick them up and adapt them and use them how they see fit. So these tools are free. You can access them on NASSP's website by following the URL nassp.org. Once you are in the website, look for the tab called Professional Learning. Click on the Professional Learning tab, find Online Professional Development, and click that on. It will take you to a page, and if you scroll down on that page about halfway down, you will find this tool in addition to a multitude of other tools that are being created by principals. The significance of this, and John and Carmen both referred to this, is that principals are very busy people. And while we may have thought of some of the things that are involved with teacher leadership, having a one-stop shop, if you will, an all-encompassing shop where you can just pull up one document and access multiple things is extremely beneficial to principals. So we hope you've enjoyed this, and as Joe mentioned, continue the conversation. But once again, Carmen and John, thank you to you and your group.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.
I've got one more slide here. I'd like to extend an invitation to the audience to join your colleagues for the 2018 National Principals Conference, sponsored by NASSP, July 11th to the 13th in Chicago, Illinois. You can learn about the conference and register at the address shown on this slide, www.principalsconference.org. And that concludes our presentation for today. Thank you all for joining us. And thanks again to Carmen and John. Thanks so very much. Okay.